Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Mario Kart 8 for the Nintendo Wii U, plus Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, while we're still playing through the Booster Course Pass DLC. So, yesterday we did somehow check out the forms of the Feather Cup, and overall that cup is amazing, especially ranging from Athens Dash, because it does remind me like we've experienced that particular Greece location since in 2016 for both me, Mario, Pac-Man, and Mega Man essentially. Thus, that track does remind me of a Hercules vibe because of all that structure and everything. And in addition to that, with Daisy Cruiser is actually an amazing experience, which also applies for Moonview Highway, despite for some reasons about the fact that the computer AI just feels a bit all over the place with that track in mind, but still a pretty enjoyable experience in my eyes. But the greatest highlight for me anyway, in terms of the Feather Cup, as you probably already expect, since in yesterday, that's of course Squeaky Clean Sprint, which not only is very unique, but also the entire track does manage to take place in the entire bathroom, which I think is actually pretty cool, because it does remind me like a similar vibes as in Ribbon Road, as a remake for the sake of Mario Kart 8 as a game itself. Well, not just by the forms of the Wii U DLC, but also with the forms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe based game. So yeah, you pretty much get the idea for this particular solution. So anyway, so today for this video is about the fact that, as you can tell, we're now going to be able to decide to choose Daisy for this particular cup coming up. And because of that, we're going to be hit on to the 10th cup in terms of the forms of the Booster Course Pass DLC, and it also is the second and the final cup to be released apart from the forms of Wave 5 selection. So because of that, yeah, let's dive right into the Cherry Cup. So because of that, I believe, as far as I'm aware, we might be able to come across into 2 CD courses, just like the forms of how it does it in the Boomerang Cup, so everything else will be come to expect. So anyway, so here we go on to the first track in terms of the forms of the Cherry Cup, and we're going to be hit on to Los Angeles Laps. And this obviously is based off of Mario Kart Tour, and as far as I'm aware, this does manage to take place in America, and except this time it does manage to take place in somewhere in Los Angeles. So pretty cool track though to me anyway, especially no matter what though, is that unlike in Mario Kart Tour version of this track, that obviously the time of day is somehow that it does manage to take place in sunset, whilst in here is that it does manage to take place in daytime completely. So kind of an interesting experience, all things considered. So, and obviously, as we expected, we'll go through a serious amount of sections based off from Los Angeles Laps, not only 1, but also 2 and 3. So we pretty much know exactly what to expect, especially concerning thanks to the forms of those arrow lights that somehow indicate who you're supposed to go to. So because of that though, nothing else to say about this, I guess. And it's also worth noting for, it's a cool thing about the fact that we've already experienced Los Angeles before, all thanks to the forms of how the fact that you noticed ever since in during the forms of about, I would say it's been about 6 months ago or something like that, since we've experienced Los Angeles for the first time. And look, we actually just somehow glide over to the entire baseball stadium, which is actually pretty cool though, even though no matter what though is about the fact that the music choice on this version of this track though, it just sounds a little bit more, I don't know, odd to me. Well, that's just mainly because I'm pretty much used to with the forms of the original version of that particular music choice in Mario Kart Tour, because it just sometimes managed able to bring up certain vocals like kind of vocals, but in Mario Kart 8's Deluxe version of that track though, obviously it does not bring any of those vocals or anything else like that on that track. But oh well, beggars can't be choosers, I guess, because I'll admit though, this track is pretty cool. And it's also worth noting for, like I said before, it's been about 6 months ago since not only me, but also with Mario and the gang have already experienced Los Angeles before, all thanks to the forms of we did somehow visit to Universal Studios in Hollywood during the forms of the Super Nintendo World in Hollywood. So pretty cool stuff while looking back in during the forms of the midway portion of 2024, But then again, we'll let Maxi will mention more about it if he decides able to mention about the forms of specific details about the final thoughts of 2024 as a result, until, to be more specifically, until the next couple of days' time. So because of that, yeah, Los Angeles Lab, this is actually a pretty cool track, I'm not gonna lie. So anyways, let's move on to the next track, and this one appears to be by the forms of Sunset Wilds. And this is obviously based off from a track from Mario Kart Super Circuit. And I think, fundamentally speaking though, this is actually the final Mario Kart Super Circuit track is going to be returned in the forms of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as the entire game itself. So because of that, let's see how specific changes are involved in this particular track though. Well, for one noticeable thing is that the visuals is actually going to be a little bit more upgraded. And on top of that though, I really have to admit it though right away, I really love the background music on this particular stage. Especially it's almost like a, well, a Wild Western kind of vibes to it though. But there is one little disappointing aspect about this particular version of this track, which I'll admit though right away, that does upset a lot of people as well, which, myself included, is that for those of you who do remember, back in Mario Kart Super Circuit, where, and that could be also applies for Mario Kart Tour version as well, that because obviously if you couldn't tell, that this entire track layout is obviously based off of Mario Kart Tour, as be expected at this point, because it does now feature the forms of those specific hills that you can able to actually pull off certain tricks and stuff like that. But there is that particular gimmick that you might able to realize about something, is that if those of you ever experienced Mario Kart Super Circuit with Mario Kart Tour combined, that the more you go into like the progression of the laps, like for example in lap 2 and lap 3, you realize there was actually a pretty cool gimmick where basically the more you go into specific laps, the actual sun itself is actually decided to go down, and making the actual time of day decides to change the background. However, in this particular version this time around though, it does not change the time of day. So as a result, it just all stays in sunset, and that's about it basically. So there's no nighttime variant, or in some cases sun dome, or anything else like that. Well, it's been a very long while since we've last experienced this track, I will have to admit to though right away, since in Super Circuit's case. So no matter what though, I was a little bit disappointed with the forms of this version of the track, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that they did somehow remove the most unique gimmicks of the entire track. But I'm guessing because no matter what though, about the fact that a lot of Mario Kart fans out there were also very upset about this as well. So, in the end though, yeah, I'm just a little bit disappointed with Sunset Wilds in this version in the end, just because I just seriously cannot even believe they removed that unique feature that was present not only on the Game Boy Advance, but also on mobile phones as well. But, oh well. Anyways, let's move on to the next track, and this is actually a pretty good choice, and that's what appears to be Koopa Cape. And this is obviously based off of Mario Kart Wii. And by the way, I love the starting location, by the way, because on that particular Mario Kart logo, as you can tell, it does manage to feature this very cool detail where the shell, the Koopa shell, just somehow goes back and forth between left and right. So yeah, it's actually a pretty cool touch, especially considering that, again, most of the tracks in this entire DLC for the Boosticles Pass is entirely based off of Mario Kart Tour in mind. So, but at the very least, we got ourselves the half pipe back. And the only disappointing aspect for this track to me though is that on the rock cliff structure, as you can tell, the color scheme is actually a little bit different. Rather than just having grey color, so instead we get ourselves a bit of a similar orangey color, as you remember from the likes of the forms of Sense and Alpine Pass, or Rock Mountain, for those of you experienced the North American version of that track. But either way, and it's also worth noting for us that much like in Mario Kart 7 version of this specific track, they no longer have those dangerous electricity obstacles they like to able to shrink you down. So yeah, it seems it's kind of odd to able to still remove that feature. Well, at the very least though, is about the fact that there's also another change around here. Like for example, is that you notice we're able to actually ended up in this particular tube bit when you're able to go down the pipe. Well, basically though, the actual entire structure of this entire... great. We got ourselves another blue shell on site, but who cares, because we're still in the lead after all. So, Anyways, on this particular section anyway, not so much on the first part, but in this part in particular, there is now a half pipe there, and you can able to actually collect some coins and item boxes, you name it. So, yeah, nothing else to say about this, I guess, but I'm very glad that Koopa Cape was actually going to be returned in this game. Well, despite the fact that with the actual questionable color choices for that rocky cliff structure, because again, it's almost like a similar situation as Alpine Pass or Rock Mountain, depending on what region you lived in. So, yeah, kind of a questionable thing to ask, but still it's a pretty enjoyable track to race on, especially noticeable concerning for the fact that, well, you know what I'm talking about. So, anyways, a few things we want to explain for this point today is that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 15th of December today, in some cases in 2024 today. Not only we've somehow got 10 more days to go until Christmas Day is almost approaching for 2024, but it's also worth noting for is that, did you guys know, it's been 2 years ago since when Sonic Prime was first released on Netflix, and while looking back on it, even to this day, I still managed to enjoy it still, although despite the fact that it's been a very long time since I actually have last watched Sonic Prime, since the third and finale season after all, especially concerning no matter what though, that I can still able to actually go back into that specific series at any point. Well, if only for a matter of the fact that the animation is really top notch while looking back on it though. Even though the story feels a little bit convoluted in some places, but either way though. So anyways, let's move on to the final track in the Cherry Cup, and this is also a really great choice as well. And this one appears to be Vancouver Velocity, and this is obviously based off of Mario Kart Tour as we expected. And in terms of the forms of how this track does manage to take place, it takes place in Canada for Vancouver. And I'm going to say, out of all the actual city tracks, in terms of the forms of based off from Mario Kart Tour anyway, this is by far my favorite city course based on in Mario Kart Tour, ranging from its atmosphere, and on top of that, it's so incredible to see in gorgeous HD, specifically in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in some cases though. I mean, relatively speaking though, once again, much like the forms of any other city courses, we'll go through certain sections based off of Vancouver Velocity 1, 2, and 3, so nothing else changes around here, aside from the fact that I really love the color scheme of this particular version of this track. It really does manage to pop up. And usually, relatively speaking though, I love the music in this particular course. It's so cool to listen to. So, that's besides the point. So, anyways, and did you believe about the fact that until the next couple of days, did you guys even believe that the first Avatar movie, you know, involves around with the forms of, you know what I'm talking about. Basically, the first Avatar film is eventually going to became 15 years old until later on throughout the majority of 2024. I mean, geez, time flies. Especially concerning for the fact, I mean, after all, that I've heard from on my phone recently that unfortunately though is about the fact I don't think I can able to actually see Sylvester the Cat along with Fluttershy anytime soon, because I'm pretty sure they're both about to be able to return back home until specifically maybe next Monday or something like that. Well, not until tomorrow, or just, I don't know, I haven't checked my calendar for the sake of time, just because I've not seen them two for quite some time, just because I would love to discuss upon, you know what I'm talking about, with Mario Kart 8 Booster Course Pass, you know, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, content-wise, but apart from those side things though, I will admit though, I feel like that Wave 5 is really cool wave, especially concerning for the fact that there's one little downside with that particular wave to me though, not what appears to be the disappointing, the lack of gimmick for the actual Sunset Wilds. But apart from those side things though, Wave 5 is almost perfect, but regardless of such though, I can see why that most people seemed able to address that whenever they first time experiencing Sunset Wilds, after experiencing Mario Kart Super Circuit for the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack, like, usually up to this point anyway, because still, the actual charm to that particular track in, you know, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version of Sunset Wilds is completely wiped out. Like, I just seriously don't understand why they just somehow go for that decision, but Oh well, not the end of the world, but regardless of such though, like I said before, Wave 5 is pretty fantastic, but not perfect, but at least it's almost comes close, but I mean, who knows, maybe it could get a little bit more better, until we'll find out, until next weekend for the 6th and the final wave for the Boosticles Pass DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so, well, we might as well stay tuned for that, until specifically next weekend, so... Anyway, once again, we've claimed the glorious gold trophy, or to be more specifically, a simplistic trophy I might add, but who knows, because obviously no matter what though, we're actually doing really dang well without coming into 2nd or 3rd or even lower than that, which I think is actually pretty impressive on my part. So, anyways, with that being said folks, is that we got endings off this point right here, so join me next weekend for more of Let's Play of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Boosticles Pass playthrough. Is that we're going to be hit on to Wave 6, in some cases the final wave for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Boosticles Pass DLC. And where to start things off with at this point, we'll go on to Acorn Cup first of them too. So yeah, this will be exciting. So I'll see you guys until next Saturday. Later fellas.